All right, guys, it's another rest round episode. Today we've got Wade with us from Ecos Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Wade is a new affiliate of Butch's. So today we're gonna kind of talk about kind of carrying on from what we talked about the last time, as far as like choosing an affiliate, choosing a school to go to. So some of that's going to come up, and just I'm training here now, and just kind of how we got here. So, Butch, how you doing?
Good. And I think it's an important topic for people in general, right? Like I know when I first started in the 90s, and then I started for the 90s and probably looking for an affiliate then, but definitely got one in the 2000s. But like you don't I'll just say, like, I'll just start off on how I picked an affiliate. We'll kind of go off there. And I don't want to use too much names, but I will say this, like when I picked an affiliate, I 100% was just going for name value, right? So don't necessarily think that's the best way to do it. And that's kind of what I want to talk, because a lot of these things on jiu-jitsu is like, how do we pick an affiliate? How do you get there? What's important? What's important? And really, and I can tell a lot of people from like some mistakes I made and from talking to a lot of friends and where we are now. But when I was, in the early 2000s, I picked Hoist Gracie. I'll just throw that out there. I don't want to, and it's fine that I do, because I'm not disparaging him whatsoever. I have nothing but great things to say. But I picked him solely on name value, because I'm like, hey, jiu-jitsu, I think I started jiu-jitsu because of Hoist Gracie. Like without him, I wouldn't be here, right? So I picked him, and I was very proud of it. And in the early 2000s, there wasn't a lot of internet, there wasn't this and that, but I could, I was like, yeah, like nobody's going to beat me. I've got this Hoist Gracie guy, right? And at the time there's Grappling Magazine. I don't know if you guys remember that, but there wasn't, that was another big selling point at the time, because they put a big ad in this Grappling Magazine all the time. It had my name in there, it had all his affiliates. Well, ultimately, and we'll get into the ins and outs of all that stuff, but ultimately, like, it didn't really matter, like what I was doing, meaning that I picked him for name value, and let's just talk about that for a second. But I was trying to beat every other gym that was in West Virginia on name value alone. But ultimately, I was the only gym in Charleston, West Virginia, which, there's a couple gyms now, but why was I doing that? I mean, like I was trying to beat people that didn't exist. Right. I mean, or ultimately, I think, the other thing I was thinking is it's not just the area, but I was trying to be something. And then obviously being with Hoist is, I think could be prestigious, right? And it definitely was. I'm still proud of it to this day. I mean, he's a great guy and nothing but great things to say. But that, I'm just going to be honest, I want to start that off. That is not the way to pick your jiu-jitsu affiliation, is on the biggest name value and not go through all the things that I want us to talk about. Right. So let's start it with that. Like, I mean, what do you guys think about that? Like, because obviously you weren't around, neither one of you were around now or around then, but, well, what's your thoughts? Just come off like with me telling you why I did what I did, and what do you guys think about that?
And I'll just kind of go into mine real quick, because we kind of talked about it before. There was only one show in town, and that's where I started, right? And so I trained there until I was a purple belt, and then me and my instructor had our falling out, and I went my own way and found Butch. But the picking Butch over I had a lot of options. There were a lot of guys in Columbus that I found were, they were friends, and ultimately, I picked Butch for a couple of different reasons. One, I go to the WVGOs, and he was always passionate about the competitors and thankful for the competitors. And then also, I seen how his guys who trained with him responded to him, and I knew that they had a special relationship with you, and so that meant a lot to me. If your guys love you, there's a good chance that you're a good guy, and so that meant a lot to me. And as far as like, I think this was the funny thing, is because I remember it was around the Rumble Johnson seminar. It was a little bit before that, and I'd started coming down pretty regular from Ohio to train with you. And then the Rumble Johnson seminar came. It was a little bit before the Rumble Johnson, and I was like, hey Butch, I think I'm your student now. And you're like, yeah, I know. And that was kind of the conversation that was kind of the conversation, like how I became an affiliate of Butch Hiles, and how Bobcat and Starbrick kind of became your thing. But it was always just like, it was just the guy behind it.
Yeah.
I like the way you lead. I like the way your guys loved you, and I hope that my guys love me the same way and respond to me the same way. So I seen a lot of qualities in you that I hope that I embody as well.
Well,
And
yeah,
for
and I
me,
appreciate
I was,
that.
and
Good. Wait, I'm
Butch,
sorry.
I was right along in your camp. There weren't options that I wanted to continue down here in High Point just for training myself. So I decided to open my own school. And as a purple belt, I really thought I needed the name recognition. I needed something to go along with, because here you have a purple belt when there's schools down the road that have black belts training and stuff like that. So, I jumped in on a bigger name school. And, unfortunately, that was right at the start of COVID. I mean, I opened up my first day of classes was March 1st, and governor shut down martial arts schools on March 10th. So that was my introduction to my gym. We shut down for a while, and then that association changed a little bit. The head of the association retired. I still get along with everybody at the association, but it felt very business like, and that felt like a business. I do this because I enjoy it. And then it was some training on my own, and we were without association for a while. And I think Gary, your wife called. I talked to Gary's wife first and said, "Hey, my husband's looking for a place to train down here," and he came in, and the people just gravitated to him a lot. So, and I like picking up the teaching cues and stuff. So when we were looking for a place, he's like, "Well, I'm with Butch Hiles, and everything I'd seen from Gary is top notch." I said, "Well, all right, well, you're here, you live a mile from the school. Let's go and get the party started here." And it's really taken off. I mean, growth is going up, and I think we don't do a ton of advertising, but when people come in and see our community here and see what we have, people don't leave once they start, unless they move out of town or something. It's
Which is awesome, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, and I think so you and I have a similar story, right? Like, so we picked name value, and there's kind of nothing wrong with that. It depends. And that's kind of like, there's a bunch of different paths that we all can go down, right? And we're going to be probably all over the place, which is fine. But, and I kind of want to get into that. So, like, on that note, the reason I say that you only don't pick on that way, because there is, so for me, being the only show in town, it made no sense to be like, that's my main focus, right? Because if I'm trying to pick the biggest name because I want to compete with everybody, but I'm not competing with anybody, then that doesn't really make sense, right? However, if I'm still getting awesome, amazing training, then it's fine, right? And so this is where it gets a little sticky, and I want to make sure that I tread lightly here, because I don't want it to sound like, Hoist is not the man, or his his affiliation is not awesome, because it is. It truly is. But for me, where I wasn't traveling and not seeing him, who lived in Torrance, California at the time, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So if I'm picking an affiliation I'm in West Virginia, he's in California, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Would you guys agree? I mean, it could, but if you're Hoist Gracie and you got 300 schools and you have international schools, how often am I actually training with Hoist Gracie? So I'm paying a guy to be my coach who I'm not actually seeing, right? Like, again, and so the argument is not even an argument. I don't mean it that way either. Because Hoist and I, we had a very amicable split, and actually wouldn't even call it split. It just wasn't working out for me. But that's what it came down to. Is like, hey man, like, I'm an affiliation, but I don't ever see you in order to train. So their response was, well, you could travel. And that is 100% true. And he had so many affiliations in Virginia, North Carolina, and all these places near me. But like, I wasn't trapped, I mean, I'm a busy person. So like, everything he said is right, and everything I say is right. Right. So then it comes down to like, it's like if you're dating a person, it's just not kind of working out because like you guys are too busy to see each other, or it's a long distance relationship, which is what ours was. It was a long distance relationship. We weren't really seeing each other. So then it's like, how long do you hang on? Right. So if I'm picking a trainer, and let's take name value aside, because obviously as the biggest name in the business at that time, then it comes down to what am I getting training wise? And because I wasn't traveling, wasn't doing my part, and I wasn't able to see Hoist because he was so busy, then it's like, okay, like what am I actually paying for? Like I have the name and it does something, but it doesn't do, like in my place, I don't have people, like I'm not really competing with somebody. So like the most important thing for me would be somebody's got to train me, right? Like I was a blue belt, somebody's got to train, like actually train me. And so, and I'll just kind of lead you down my story is what happens is, that's when the underground, or go ahead.
Well, just to interrupt too, like it's also important to know that you kind of started at a different time than everybody else. And it's important to remember that like when you started, the fact that you were a blue belt meant something big. And if you at that time, purple belts were like superheroes who flew in on magic carpets, like the purple belts didn't exist, and brown belts were legends.
Yeah. Very solid point, because I actually shared an article on Facebook today where it said, was it the IBJJF or somebody said that no purple belts or brown belts should be teaching jiu-jitsu. It's kind of I didn't read the article, I'll be honest. I just shared it to cause people to like argue, right? Like, cause I don't believe that. Sorry for coughing, but I've been teaching since I was a blue belt. I've been teaching since I was a white belt, right? So I don't believe that whatsoever. I didn't read the article, so it could have been just a clickbait headline for all I know. But yeah, so you're exactly right. That was the time when you're a blue, I would show up at tournaments and people would be like, yeah, you're a blue belt in Japanese jiu-jitsu. And I'd be like, no, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. They'd be like, holy shit, like you're a god, right? At the time, it's a different time where now blue belts are a dime a dozen. I was taking seminars from people, which oddly enough, both of the guys are fairly famous. Paul Creighton, who fought in the UFC, Henzo guy, and Chris Blanky, a solo guy, another amazing guy. But I both went to both their seminars, and they were blue belts. And I paid $75 to take a seminar from a blue belt. Right now, somebody would be like, "What? What are you talking about?" Right? Like they're everywhere, right? But that was a big deal back then. But yeah, so yeah, and so there was, to go back to the story there, the website, which I think still around, I'm just not on it, but the Underground or MMA TV or mixedmartialarts.com, whatever the heck it's called now, that's where everybody congregated. That's like, I knew Joe Rogan before he was Joe Rogan was on the Underground, and everybody talked to him. But anyway, I was talking to a guy on there, and he was a Pedro Sauer affiliate. Pedro is another awesome guy, but he ran into the same problems that I ran into. He's like, what, like, I'm not really getting what I thought I would get. I'm not getting trained per se. Right. And he ran into my current affiliate, which is Marcelo Monteiro. So just random conversation on MMA TV, but he was like, hey, this new guy just moved from Brazil. He's pretty awesome. Nobody knows who he is because he just moved here. Like, you should talk to him because like, he's in Indiana, which is about 5 hours from me. He's like, he really, really close to you. He doesn't have 1,000 schools because he's brand new, and his son's pretty awesome. You should train with him. Seems like a good guy. So I was, I was a purple belt under Hoist Gracie at the time. By the time this happened, that was 2004. Anyway, I was like, well, whatever. I'll see what this guy's about. No, like, I had no thoughts in my mind of switching or of anything. I just thought, as I was a purple belt, I thought it was pretty awesome. I was like, I'll kick this guy's ass from Brazil, whoever this guy is, because I'm 240 pounds. This guy was 150 pounds. Like I still had that old American thought process. I wasn't fully into jiu-jitsu, So anyway, he came down. He's 155 pounds. His son was probably roughly the same and younger. He's a brown belt. But anyway, they beat the crap out of me, way worse than Hoist, and not because of skill level. It's just a little different the way they're rolling, but and just made me feel like when I left, like I've said this story before, but I'll just say it, like, I know, like, we did the whole thing, we rolled, and then I was the guy's ride because he was there. So I was sitting in the car waiting for him to come, and I almost started crying in the car. no joke. And maybe I did cry, to be honest with you, in a weird way. It is because I never got beat up so bad. And I truly did believe that I was something special because like, I just got my purple belt and I did all these great things. And I was, I mean, I was pretty good at the time. But they, they were rolling a different way, to probably try to impress me. And they were a lot smaller and I didn't know who they were. And they were rolling different, like, that was 2004. So there's a lot of full, closed guard times. And, the Gracies were preaching a certain style, which is still right. Like they still do, right? Like if you look at Horian and them, they're doing a self-defense type jujitsu, right? And that's kind of what Hoist was starting to focus on too. And so all of a sudden, like Marcel and them were doing De La Hiva and open guard and things I've never heard of, right? I had no clue. I was really a basic self-defense jujitsu, which is amazing. It's just I didn't know the sports side of it. And anyway, I got murdered by two little people that I considered little people. And anyway, I was about ready to cry. I thought, man, I spent all these years doing jujitsu and I know nothing. I couldn't even last like 2 seconds with these little tiny people. And so anyway, then Marcelo gets in the car and he's like, hey, he's wrong. Like you could tell I was upset. And I'm trying to wipe away tears and act like nothing's wrong. Just, how that stuff is. And then he knew though. And he said, dude, it's okay. Like everybody does this when I roll with them or something, it's like, it was so early because a lot of people didn't know that stuff. Right. And he said, you don't know. He again, I want to make sure because he said, sorry, nothing but great stuff about Hoist. He said, without Hoist Gracie, I wouldn't be here. He's the man, blah, blah, blah. He never disparaged him. And I would never disparage him. But he just said, you don't know, like jujitsu, self-defense jujitsu. You don't know how to put your knee up in guard. You don't know how to do this. You don't know what open guard is. Like things that are pretty basic now. But, that was 2000. I had no idea. And so that was the time that I started contemplating switching, but it had zero to do with the level of jujitsu. Let's make that clear. Zero to do with the level of jujitsu. And I still admire Hoist Gracie. What it had to do with, I just put it all together. Look, I'm under Hoist and I don't ever see the guy. One, because I'm not willing to travel and I wasn't doing it because I was busy at work. And two, because he's so busy. So then what am I doing? Right. And so then I thought, well, this guy's 5 hours away. Okay. I still have the problem that I'm not going to like travel, but I could, because now I can drive to the guy. I don't have to take a flight to somebody or take a flight to somebody else's school or do this or do that. And then also Marcelo he's wide open. So then I was able to see him more. And he would come to my school or my academy at the time didn't have to be a seminar, right? Sometimes he would just show up. He'd say, hey man, what are you doing Tuesday? I'll be there. And not only did he do that, this is the other thing that happened. And you guys probably know a lot of, I'm sorry for hugging all the time, but a lot of times when you have an affiliate who's a big guy, a famous person, and you'll ask a question and they want you to take a private, right? And again, I don't want to like say nothing bad because I get it. It's a business. But Marcelo would say, meet me so-and-so. In fact, I'll tell you another thing about Marcelo. Like he would come to my basement. I put some mats in my basement. This is, my affiliate, my instructor. He'd roll with me for 2-3 hours and tell me to invite my friends. And they never cost, it never cost no money. So like that was I was sold. Like I was in. I was like, and then we'd roll for hours and I'd get my butt kicked and learned a bunch of stuff. And it wasn't $250, right? It was a friend. And that's what I was looking for. And I didn't know it. And I think, to answer to kind of echo what Gary said is I learned a lot from that because I knew what I was looking for. And then I wanted to offer that to other people, right? Let's say like, I want to be what people want. I don't want it to be a business, right? I want it to be a friendship. I want to still learn jujitsu together and never switch that. I never want us to call each other, whatever. We're all just friends learning jujitsu, period, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, and to kind of go back to that, I've seen a lot of that here. Honestly, this is the first place that I trained when I got down here. And it was because, like you're saying, I'm literally like 3 turns from my house to get here. So like I turn out of my driveway, I turn onto one road, I turn onto another, and I'm here. So that's what got me here to begin with. Is like, hey, look, the jiu-jitsu place is right down from my street or right down from my house, so I can stop here first. But the thing that I like the best is like it is an atmosphere of everybody just wanting to learn jujitsu and share jujitsu. And so for me, like that's a big part of it. And you know, had it not been that, I could have gone other places and done my trial here and then done a trial somewhere else. But I just immediately like I like the guys, and I have trained at other places here in High Point, but like this, it almost instantly felt like home for me. Like
Yeah.
I had a lot of the same atmosphere and attitude that I have back home in Ohio, and kind of the same feeling that I get when I go to Charleston. And so it was just like, yeah, this is kind of where I'm supposed to. It just kind of fit. So
Yeah, well, we're glad to have Gary. And when we were changing when I was leaving sort of our big name affiliation, unlike you, Butch, I had a lot of support around here. I mean, there's a number of schools, a number of black belts, you know, a lot of places where you could go for training. But it also felt, especially after the retirement of the head of the affiliation, it felt all business. And you know, I know where I'm at. I'm a high level purple belt, but even at that affiliation, I wasn't allowed to give a 6-year-old a stripe on his belt. And I'm like, come on, you know, I need to be able to do that. You know, I can't tell the parents to go down and pay $50 for a seminar twice a year so the kids can get a stripe on their belt. You know,
Yeah.
it's and that was sort of what got me. And then, like you were saying on the community part, all I want to do is do jujitsu. You know, I want to come in, I want to meet people, I want people to have a good time, I want them to learn something. You know, I can teach up to a certain level. I feel real comfortable, you know, white to blue, even teaching some other stuff. But this place here that we've got is a community. You know, people are out to support each other, and even within the High Point community, you know, we do free training for High Point first responders. First responders have already used some of the stuff, you know, in the field. They're like, I'm glad I came in because we were able to use this, or you guys showed me this. So, and that's a payback that's it's worth worth a lot more than money. You know, we don't charge, we just want to get people in. And like I said, we don't lose people, because once they give a trial, once they meet the team, they're locked in unless they happen to leave town or get a new job or something like that. I mean, people stay here. So, and we're enjoying it. So it's pretty good.
But yeah, and those things too, it's kind of it's hard to quantify, right? What that means, right? But I think it what we're saying too, though, is you should probably pick somebody like-minded, whether that's a famous person or not, right? Like, because I had the same opportunities when I left Hoist to pick other people, and I took, just like you were saying, both of you guys were saying, and I took seminars from some people, and they were great, and I have nothing but great things to say about those people. But ultimately, like, the things that turned me off were like not big things. It was just like I could just tell, like, I didn't get the same vibe that like part of, like, what you're saying, like a business, right? Which is fine, but like that's not my values, right? Like if I'm truly saying I want to be friends with everybody, like my friends don't really charge me to do friendly things, right? There's a time and a place, like, and it always gets sticky, right? Because like we're all like before this podcast started, I was bragging about Gary's t-shirt there, right? Gary would have every right to charge me for that t-shirt, and I wouldn't care, because that t-shirt cost him money, right? So I don't really consider that business per se, right? But that's part of the thing. But like me and Gary will trade t-shirts with each other, and there's times too, like maybe like I do it at my gym too. It's hard because like, those guys are my friends, right? But I have to keep the lights on. But so like sometimes like I give people kind of a deal that I shouldn't. Sometimes I give them away that I shouldn't, because like my wife will kick my ass, because like it is a business, right? And I don't mind skirting that line between business and friendship as long as it's on the up and up, meaning like a t-shirt, like we're cool, a gi or this or that, or a seminar, right? I can't let everybody in a seminar. There's a thing, like, you got to respect that stuff. But I want it to be where the three of us, let's say all of us, like, let's go train. It's not like, because well, first of all, I'm nobody special, but it's like, there's no bull crap, right? Gary and I've also often talked about, this is more of my hang up than it is Gary's, but like none of us would go hang out and say, here's my students, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, right? That's just my hang up. I bring it up all the time, right? So like, just so you know, Wade, you haven't been on these conversations. I have a big problem with, I guess because it happened to me like a lot, where I'd go out with my instructor, my old instructor, and then, and then I'd introduce him in my town, and he'd say, yeah, here's Butch, my student. I'm like, F you, man. We're at a bar right now. This is a bar that has zero to, you're not this, we're either friends or we're not. Like, it's not about a student. Like, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, so anyway, and you have every right to say that, because you two and me, we're teaching the people at our gym. They are students. We are the instructor. I just have a hang up about it. But because if you're my friend, I don't ever put my friends at a lower pedestal than me, period. And so I'm very big on that, and so I guess it kind of goes back to what we're saying is, when you pick something, you really should be more than jujitsu. Even though we're doing this for jujitsu, we should all be like-minded people. And there's a lot of factors, right? We just like-minded big for me, because like I just said, I have this giant hang up that makes no sense to half the people, right? But jiu-jitsu is a huge part. You have to get jiu-jitsu. But Gary made a statement one time, and it hurt my feelings, but no, it didn't really, but I'm just joking with you. But he said, like, let's be honest, jujitsu is jujitsu, and I could pick an affiliate, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm talking about, Gary? Like, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, I'm literally just.
Well, and the thought process is, no, but here's the thing is, like, the thought process is that jujitsu, regardless of where you're doing it, it's the same techniques ultimately.
Absolutely.
I mean, there are only so many ways to do a triangle. There are only so many ways to do an arm bar. There are only so many ways. And you can kind of, maybe we can create another way of doing that same technique, but it's still the same technique. So now you're training for another reason. There's something else that you're training. Why do you have high level guys? I've got a buddy who just left his school. Now he's still friends with everybody at school, but now he's training with the Daisy Fresh guys.
Oh, okay.
That's high level shit.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
He left the school that he was at. He's still friends with everybody. He still loves everybody that's there, but he left that school because he's looking to advance his game, and that school couldn't give him what he was looking for anymore. And you can only have so many top level guys at your home. It's big fish, little pond kind of stuff. Absolutely. At your home school before you have to move on. And he's at a level, he's 26, 27, maybe he's 28 years old. He's in the prime. He's competitive. He's already released his BJJ Fanatics videos, and like he's killing it.
Yeah.
But he's got a little bit more of a ladder to climb. He wasn't going to be able to do that where he was at. And so, yeah, they're going to move on. And so you have to find the affiliate that you're looking for that's fitting you. And that's just, that it doesn't matter if it's the affiliate, if it's the school, if it's even coaches sometimes. And a coach, a decent coach can only take you so far. If he doesn't have the other guys in the room to push you, you need a new coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and like you were saying, you got to find somebody who fits what you need, and that has the same goals in mind, and has the same wants out of both, as far as a teacher to a student, and as a student for, what he needs out of a coach. They have to coincide. And if they don't coincide, it's never going to be a good relationship.
No, that's a good point too. And I would there's a lot of ways, hell, while you're talking, there's about 50 things that popped in my head and 0 that I remember, but that's also brain damage problems. But what I was going to say, or what I'm thinking here, is that a lot of ways we can go with that. But while you're saying the guy that went to Daisy Fresh, that's another thing. You should hopefully be with an affiliate or a coach that wants you to grow because they're truly your friend, right? That's important. And so, and here's 2 examples, a couple of examples. One, we're looking at it, Gary. Gary went to North Carolina. He could have did whatever. I'm his friend. I don't, if Gary had called me and said, hey man, I hooked up with these people, I'm going to do this and do that, I'd be like, okay, cool. Love you, man. Do it, and whatever that was, and honestly feel it. I'm not going to ever pretend like my feelings would never be hurt for stuff. Like, I'm a human, right? Like, there's things, but I can talk through that with my friend and still be his friend. Just like there's things my wife do that hurts my feelings and vice versa, right? And then we talk through it. We're still married. But same thing, I have a friend in Virginia who's an affiliate of mine, and he doesn't run a gym. So he's gym hopped a little bit, going back and forth and going to some places. And it's the same. And every time he goes to a place, he's also a black belt. They love him, and they're like, hey, I want you to teach. I want you to do this. And then the next thing is, hey, why don't you switch to our team? Why don't you do this and do that? And he always says, hey, man, like, I'm going to train with you, and I love you, and I love you guys, and I want to be part of your team. However, like, Butch is my friend, and that's who I started with since I was a blue belt. I'm just not going to leave him. And two, and luckily those guys have all complied. It doesn't mean that they don't pressure him, and I'm not worried about it. Like, I don't, also, if he switches team, like, he's still my friend. And I think that's important, right? He's always going to be my friend. Like, I'm not, like, I always make this joke with people at the gym and say, we're not in a gang. Meaning, like, if we're not the Crips and Bloods. If you go and do jujitsu with, a different team, like, now we're not enemies. It's true. Like, but I wasn't always that person, when I was 18 or, however long that lasted, when I was a young man, it hurt my feelings, and my hurt feelings turned into hatred for that person because my feelings were hurt, because I was like, why did they leave me? Was I not good enough? Or screw them. I knew them since they were a white belt, and I did this for them. I did that. How could they do this? And it was like, as I got older, I realized people made decisions that necessarily weren't malicious towards me. They were decisions that were better for their life. But maybe, like, this, just like you said earlier, Gary, like, there's a gym right by your house. It makes more sense, right? There's this, there's that, there's that. So once you understand that, like, people aren't out to get you, then you can start to be okay with it. And you can also admit, like, hey, like, it hurts my feelings, and this is why. Again, like a marriage, it's hard for a man to say stuff like that. But once you can start do stuff like that, then you can say, okay, like, well, here's the bottom line. We're not in a gang. You're my friend, and we just do jujitsu. Like, right. Like, if you played video games with another friend, like, you're not going to be not my friend. Cause you know what I'm saying? Like, it's, and we forget that sometimes. It's jujitsu. And ultimately, we're just trying to be better people. And I want my friends to be the best people they can be. And again, maybe that's why our affiliation is what it is, because I know what I want, and try to give that to my friends. So ultimately, we're like affiliation, we're like a brotherhood. And again, like, I preface that with, I'm nobody special. I just happen to be in the game longer than everybody and got my black belt at a certain time, and I'm able to give a gift of jujitsu to people. But I'm not trying to pretend. I'm not a world champion. I'm not trying to pretend I'm anything. Like, I'm able to give something that a lot of people need. And just so people understand what my affiliation is, I'm a third, about ready to be a 4th degree black belt, but there's levels to this shit. So, like, even though I'm a 4th degree black belt, that sounds great, right? But there is, probably brown belts, world champions that fucking smoke me, right? That's the real deal. Like, you have to admit that as well. So what I'm able to offer is something that is, it's a brotherhood. And, my specialty, what I wanted to start with this was, when I was a small gym in West Virginia, and I was, desperate for somebody, and only options I had were people that wanted $150 a month or $200 a month, and I couldn't really afford it. And even if I afforded it, I wasn't going to get the value out of that training. When I was able to give that back, I thought, how about I don't charge anybody anything, and I just give them an opportunity to get better, and give them a roadmap of how to, all the mistakes I made, as a blue belt, purple belt, brown belt teaching. Here's what you can do to be better. And I don't force it on everybody. I give people advice. 9 times out of 10, they don't take it, but I didn't either. So I don't get mad. I just say, hey, I just keep nudging them a little bit. And then hopefully, and that's what my job is to say, hey, here's this, here's that. Just like Gary said, jujitsu is jujitsu. Anybody can teach it to you. My job is to help you be a better person and better gym. And if you have a gym, like you do, Wade, it's your pride and joy. You want it to survive. Your wife wants to survive, whoever. That's what we want, man. We want that. We want to just be that. This is my life. This is our legacy, right? Whether it's 4 people in the gym or 300. This is your pride and joy, what you grew up, what you want to be amazing. So if I can offer that in any way, that's what my job is. My job's not to be Saulo Hiberio or anybody else, because I'm not. They'll kill me. My job's to be whatever I am in this small little piece, and then you can be whatever you can be, hopefully, right? And then as a giant team, we're more mightier, right? If you put 900 of us together, maybe we're one Saulo Hiberio or one whoever, right? Like, whoever, but we have something special. We really do, and it makes me happy. Like when you sent me that picture today, Gary, of you guys training, that makes me happy, man. Seeing you guys on the mat and seeing the beautiful stuff that you got, and vice versa. We get to share that together. I think that's special. That's why we're together. I don't, hopefully that helps some people, but
Yeah.
sorry.
Well, and kind of going back to kind of echo stuff that you'd said, like the different levels. If I've said it here a lot, and I've said it to my guys back home a lot. It's hard for people to understand that I am probably better than 98, 99% of the people in the world at jiu-jitsu, and I still suck.
Yeah, that's very common statement.
And like, people have a hard time understanding that, because they'll roll with you and be like, I just can't do anything with you, and I can't do anything against you. And I was like, there are still people who make me feel that way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu, is it really is a forever learning experience. Like, it's something that you can do the rest of your life, and you're always learning a little bit more every day. You learn, oh man, I really shouldn't be holding that, thumb up. I should be holding that thumb down. Or I really shouldn't be posting my hand on the knee. I should be I should be grabbing the shin, or whatever it is. And so there's all these little things that you get to fix in your game, and it's a lifetime thing. And then the other thing is like lessons that you try and tell your students. I can't tell you how many times I've said, bring a notebook.
Yeah.
Bring a notebook and write it down. Bring a notebook and write it down. Everybody should probably bring a notebook and write it down. How many people brought notebooks?
Not a lot. I started using notes on my phone. I put notes on my phone now, and
really, that's awesome.
I looked at them again today, and then Gary was sitting up here, and I'm like, all right, what did you do with that lapel again on this one? Because I was trying to work it on somebody,
and I told him he needs to buy a private.
Yeah, he said it's $200. $200 for him coming into the shop I set up, and then I get to pay him money. So it's pretty good. So.
Well, I know that's a joke, but that literally was my experience at some point in my life. It really was, right? You came to my school and I said, hey, where should I put my hand here? And said, time is money. Buy a private. So I'll tell you what, I'll get a different person like at some point in my life, and it's not people I talked about, but I'm just saying it's what happens, man,
Yeah.
And to your point, business turns some people off, right? There's nothing wrong with it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I get my business from, my other jobs make me money, this is something I did because I wanted to do it. And, I don't want it to cost me money, but at the same time, I do this because I like to do it. But I still don't live and breathe jujitsu. I think Gary spends a lot more time on jujitsu related things than I do, except maybe time on the mat, because I'm in here pretty much every class. But, I just enjoy it, and I know I can give it back, especially up to a certain level. And having you guys here and the same philosophy about just teaching and learning, that's all I need. I don't need these rules and regulations about stripes on kids' belts and all this other stuff. It's just come in and train. And I think you like that about me when you started. It's just I just want to train.
He just wants to train.
That's all.
That was another thing, is like we were talking about like minds, right? And like similar paths, and that's something that we all have in common, is like jiu-jitsu is not our livelihood. And I'm happy for those people who make it their livelihood. And if you can monetize jiu-jitsu for yourself to do jiu-jitsu all the time, then that's great, and I'm happy for you. But like, we all have jobs. We all have things that we do to make our real money, and that keep food on our bellies and clothes on our back. And jiu-jitsu really is that was part of it. Me coming here is like, it's a passion project. That's what Bobcat was and Starbrick was. It's a passion project. It's just like, I want to do jiu-jitsu with people who want to do jiu-jitsu for jiu-jitsu. And and it's not the best business model, and I know that, but like, I want people who are truly passionate about you know, and I want to train somewhere. Not that people at other places aren't truly passionate about it, but the focus is somewhere else a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't, that's the thing that'll kind of turn me away is I want the focus to still, I want people to make money, but I want the focus to be jujitsu and sharing jujitsu. And if that's secondary, then you'll start to lose me a little bit.
No, that's a good point. And so, and it echoes what we're saying, right? Like-minded people, right? And again, you know, I picked, you know, something for me that was like-minded with me, which is exactly what we're all saying. But, you know, like I'm not into, it's weird because I'm like anti-traditional in a way, which I think most Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu people are. However, as the older I get, I guess, pay more respect to the traditional stuff. However, that doesn't mean that I change. So to clarify that statement, I guess, to make it make more sense is like, I'm not into everybody wearing white gi, for example, right? Nothing wrong with it. So I'm just saying, like, and there's a lot of things that I'm just not in traditional way. Like, I don't bow to get on the mat. There's nothing wrong with it. Everything I say, there's zero wrong with it. I'm just saying, like, how I am is just not, that's where I want to be. Like, if I don't like to bow to get on the mat, I'm not into that, then why would I have an instructor that wants me to bow and get to the mat and do all this stuff that I'm just not comfortable with? Now, could I do it? Yeah. And do I do things like that all the time? Yeah. There's things at work or in my everyday life that I do that's not maybe in my values, right? But that's life, right? But jujitsu is my passion, just like you guys said, right? My hobby. It's not my job. So I don't want to be miserable when I go there, right? I want to do things that come to me. Now, if I bow to the mat, that's not a big deal. Like, you know, I don't want to get it twisted. If I had to wear white gi, don't want to get it twisted, right? But there's just all those things combined, right? If you come on and you have to do this and you have to do that, it's pretty cool. Like for me, you know, and I have a little bit more responsibility than some people because, you know, with Marcelo's actually turned more traditional and more business like as he's gotten older, right? And he and I have talked about this. We've had some problems with this. So I'm just going to throw it out in the podcast. It's fine. It's not like anything that he's going to get mad about. But, you know, like he'd come down because it used to be free. Right? It was 100% free. He came here, just like I said. And then later he's like, yeah, I got some great news for you. Start charging you $100 a month. Like, what great news is this? Like, right? Yeah, like it's not what I signed up for, right? And you know, we got through all that, but you know, he's gotten older, more business like, and that's fine because that's how he does make a living, right? So he wants you to buy his gis and all this, and I get it, right? And we're such good friends though, he and I. So this is where it changes. Where again, I'm not talking shit. Like my gym, you come to my gym, and you know, I'm the guy with the Marcelo gi on. Not very many of the guys at the gym, right? Just probably like much like Gary and those guys, like because we have the black belt, and one of the things he said, you know, if you're gonna black belt for me, you got to do this stuff, right? And I think he's correct. It's just that again, my values are not there. It's a very hard struggle for me to be business like because my instructor wants everybody else to be business like. It just doesn't meet my values. So I'm one of his few affiliates that probably is a pain in his butt, right? But that's also why we're good friends because he lets it go. You know, we talk about it. He said, man, you know, everybody else does this. You don't do this. I ain't going to do that, man. This is not what I signed up for. And we talk about it. And that is why we're friends, because if it got too hard, and I'm not saying I wouldn't, but I don't want to feel terrible for doing jujitsu, right? I don't want to be like, I don't want some guy to come into my gym who has no money. And I say, you have to buy $250 gi from Marcelo and you got to come to his, I'm going to make you go to his seminar. I'm going to make you do this. I'm going to make you do that. If you want to do jiu-jitsu again, you know, and I keep going back to this and I want to sound like an idiot. Like when I say there's nothing wrong with it, like there's not, because we all did it. Right. We've traveled, we went to seminars. I'm still doing seminar. Right. And you have to pay your,
and you also kind of going back to what you were saying, you also don't want to be the guy. And I know of affiliates where, you know, such and such Gracie's coming to town and there's going to be a seminar and you got to have enough people for the seminar. And so then they call all the students who haven't been coming to class lately. Like, man, guess what? Such and such is coming. I really need you to come to the thing. Like, oh man, that'll be great. And they'll be like, Yeah, and it's $100.
Yes, exactly.
The reason they called him to come was not to come to the thing. It was because the $100. They need to keep the affiliate happy, or the and that was the thing. That kind of stuff turned me off.
Me too.
It wasn't about the learning jujitsu anymore. It became about the monetization of jujitsu, and for the less, for not having proper words for it, but like pimping jujitsu out.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh,
Wade, while Gary's fixing whatever he's fixing, did you, without knowing a lot of your background, do you have similar situations where you had to have seminar, that's part of being affiliation.
Well, when we were under our other affiliation, we were required to hold like 2 seminars a year. I think it was one was $2,500. So I got to make that money up. It was a gigantic price.
That's huge.
Yeah, and to try to get that twice a year, but we're trying to do this because just to get people interested in jujitsu and are passionate about jujitsu. And we don't charge a high monthly fee. I mean, they're going to pay more to attend that seminar than they are to pay for a month of jujitsu here. And it's just not, it's not what I want it to, it's not what I want it to be. Like you said, you can tell the difference in a school that is set up where they need it because that's their living. Everything changes. You have to buy my gi. You have to go to the seminar. You have to give 3 months notice in order to leave. If you want to leave, if you're not happy here, which we haven't experienced, then you should be able to leave. I don't want to keep your money for 3 more months because you don't like it here, or you're leaving, but I still am going to charge you for 3 months. It's like, no, we're just come in, and we'll have people come up. I've got friends that are black belts. We'll have you down here. We'll put together seminars for our students. A buddy of mine from Florida is going to come up probably every other month or so, starting this fall. And I'll just come up and teach. That's all you put me up in your house and we'll hang out together. And if I can get his family up here too, but I'm not going to miss that. All these requirements and and everything else. And like you said, the certain color gis and and things like that. Like if you had to attend the seminar, you had to wear a white gi. Oh
yeah.
To me, it doesn't matter what color your gi is. Just come in. So that's
what I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, the problem, and there's nothing wrong with discipline, especially for kids class. Like
Absolutely.
That's where the discipline comes into play. And we were kind of talking about this before, and I know I've talked about it on here before, and I've talked about with friends. Like, it's one thing if we're in feudal Japan and you're feeding me and you're clothing me and you give me a place to live, for me to call you master and bow to you and do all that stuff because you're providing me food and you're providing me, I'm not paying anything, you're giving me a place to live, then yeah, I respect that. But that was a couple thousand years ago in Japan, and we're kind of far from that. And not that it's bad. I'm same thing you're saying, that if it's for other people, that's fine, and I'll do it. If I go to your school and that's what they do, then I don't have a problem doing it. It's just not my way of doing it, and it's just the and then the other problem is like the white gi thing. Is I've been choked by guys who are wearing rainbow gis, so it's kind of hard to say that white gi is the way to go when somebody in a purple or pink spats have beat your ass.
Yeah, and I think so, and that goes with our values, right? So like it's gonna be weird because somebody listening to this could think, well, those guys are assholes, right? Because they have a different vision of things, right? But that's what we're saying. Like, you should go with somebody that's like-minded to you. Like, if you're into tradition, you're into this, you're into that, do that, right? Like we just happen not to be. Doesn't mean we don't respect it. It's just not what I prefer to do. If it was my only option, would I do that because I love jiu-jitsu? Absolutely. I've done it before. But given the option, I've chose a different path, right? So it's okay. And that's another point, like to what both of you guys said, but particularly Wade, is, I was part of an affiliation where if somebody famous was in town and I wanted them to come, one affiliation would say no. Like they said, we have enough black belts in our affiliation. You should pick somebody in our affiliation, right? Or wait till I come. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like for example, we just had Jake Shields here, right? Jake Shields has zero to do with anything that I do. And, he's under Cesar Gracie, I believe. It's like, and when I say believe, because Gary and I, we both interviewed him and it was kind of hard to pick. He doesn't care, right? Like, I'm like, he's like, well, yeah, I kind of got it at some point under Cesar. And like he doesn't get stressed, like he doesn't really care, right? But we've had him in, we had Rumble Johnson, we had all these, and Stephan Bonner is my good friend, and Stephan, luckily, currently, he's under Carlson Gracie, but we're under that flag more or less, right? Because we're under De La Hiva, who got a black belt under Carlson. But Marcelo encourages that. He was cool with it. Like that was another thing that was cool. Like, I mentioned to him, he's like, man, get anybody you can. Like, I get it, man. Just get it. Like if you're on our team, like, and I'm fine. And that has something to do with being comfortable in your own skin, meaning that, Marcelo's not afraid if Joe Blow comes in that we're going to be like, oh man, that guy's amazing. Well, I'm leaving. Right. Marcelo's like, man, get like those guys are famous. That'll bring people into your academy. That's good business. That'll make you some money. That'll do this. That'll do that. He gets the whole thing, right? And for that matter too, like I've done some stuff that was probably stupid, meaning that, my Marcelo Montero, for example, I haven't mentioned his last name, so just so people don't think it's Marcelo Garcia, but there was a time, like let's say he was going to do a seminar on Sunday. Well, my good friend is Stephan Bonner. He was like able to come to the gym and come to West Virginia on Saturday. It wasn't planned. It wasn't on purpose, but like without having that conversation, without communicating, I could see how Marcelo might look at that and be like, dude, what a douchebag thing to do. Like I'm coming Sunday. Why he's bringing Stephan Bonner on Saturday. Right. And he did call me. It was like, hey man, what's up with that? Cause he was worried about the numbers. I said, hey man, like, here's what happened. Here's the only way he can come in. He's my friend. It's, it's a little bit different. People are still going to yours. Don't worry. Stephan's going to work with me and make sure people go to both. And, and to his credit, Marcelo showed up on Saturday to meet Stephan and just make sure we're all cool. Right. Like, that's awesome. That's what you want. Like, you don't want somebody not holding a grudge for my stupidity. Like, and it wasn't necessarily stupidity. It's just like, how those things can snowball. Again, talking about marriage, right? Like you do something, somebody's feelings get hurt. It snowballs. It's the same thing. Like he would have every right to be mad at me, right? Like instead, I've got a bunch of cool ass pictures of me, Marcelo, and Stephan all together taking selfies together. Like to me, that's the coolest thing in the world, right? Like those are my friends, and that represents, my brotherhood, my jiu-jitsu brotherhood. So I am thankful and I'm lucky with the affiliation that I picked, right? Now the cool thing is for you guys, right? In a way, is that I handle all that stuff on the back end, meaning that, I do have affiliation fees. I've got stuff that I got to take care of. That's how it works. And believe me, I'm just, again, a lot of this stuff, like I hate to be on a podcast, but my wife bitches. She's like, why are we paying this money to Marcelo? You never see him. Like, she's a wife. She doesn't get it. And I'm like, well, I owe him loyalty for us. He gave me my black belt, and I have to take responsibility in this stuff, because she's like, well, he doesn't train you. He doesn't do anything. Well, I don't go there. He's 5 hours away. I could go there anytime, right? Like, I don't. It's not Marcelo's fault. That's my fault. You have to take responsibility in thing. And he wants me to come. He asks me, begs me to come. And I don't. It's just me. I don't travel. That's what I said with the last one. It's like, I don't. It's just, like I am so busy with work and the things that I do, just like you guys, that do jujitsu with my friends, and like I'm happy with that. Doesn't mean that sometimes I don't go there. Yes, I haven't been in a long time, but I could and I will if I need to, and I will. And Marcelo, the beautiful thing about him too, and Gary and Wade, we probably should all do this. He invites us to Brazil all the time, and Gary and I don't know how close we got, but we at least talked about it.
I was ready to go, and I think it really kind of COVID. It was mess of all COVID and stuff. But I was ready. I was trying to figure out how I could okay, this is what I'm going to pitch to Brandy, and make sure that she's on board with it too. Hey, you can come with me to Brazil. So that was my thought. Was like, yeah, it was going to happen. And then I think COVID kind of shit on it.
You're absolutely right. And maybe, that's something we plan in the future, because he still writes me all the time and says the same. You need to come to Brazil. And just to be funny, like he also says, I wish you wouldn't have got married. It'd been a lot funner if you weren't married, but it's a little different. It doesn't push it nearly as much that I'm married, but no. So that's why I love him. There and just for like another like side note, a lot of times people at the gym, for the same reason, since I don't push things so much, they don't understand the whole thing, right? Like they're like, well, I don't know, Marcelo, or maybe Marcelo, blah, 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 like whatever they say. Sometimes it's actually downright stupid what they say. To be honest, like they'll say, well, I think the moves he does is old. I'm like, well, you're watching a DVD from 10 years ago. Of course it's old. Like if you watch anything new, like this or that. But they don't understand all those things that I just said and that we're saying on this podcast, which is important. And that's how you pick somebody. Like, yeah, I could pick Eddie Bravo. I could pick this or whoever anybody else thinks is amazing, right? But you're still going to run into issues there and there, like whatever those is. Get with somebody that's like-minded. Like, look, if you love to smoke weed, then maybe that's your guy over there, right? And that's the only way you choose things. And again, I'm not bashing that because Eddie Bravo is awesome. I'm just saying, like, there's things you pick people for whatever reason, and there's a lot of weird stuff. But ultimately, it goes back to what Gary said: jiu-jitsu is jiu-jitsu. We just need to get to where we're all like-minded. We're having fun. We're getting to where we need to be. And that's important because how many, and Wade, I don't want to put you on a spot, but for example, Gary and I we had met another guy in Virginia recently, and it's not like it's a harmful if I mention his name, but I won't, but just because I don't know if people want their names mentioned, but like a lot of people Gary and I have met together. And the reason they reached out to me was they were stuck at like brown belt forever, right? Or purple belt forever because of some fight. I have another affiliation that, I give him a black belt, but he was, brown belt forever because he was having problems with one of the Gracies. But I run into this a lot with certain people. Like, I don't know what happens. Maybe they get in a fight with somebody. And they just get stuck, right? And then they're paying a price because of politics. Not saying that's you by any means. I'm just saying like this happens a lot. I don't know what, it kind of got off to where I forget where I was going with that topic, but I don't know if you've experienced some of that stuff, but like it's complicated, right? Like it's not good.
I mean, I've seen it with other people. I've known people that bounce around schools and it's just belt chasing. For me personally, I took a couple of years off of jiu-jitsu. So I mean, I've probably been a purple belt for technically like 6 years. But I had a hip replacement. I had other things going on. I had family stuff going on. I couldn't find a gym that I absolutely loved training at. I was happy with where I was, but my belt will come when my belt comes. I for myself, I don't really care. I'm just, if I get a belt, I get a belt. And I'm in a different situation too, where if 5 years from now I'll be 60. Except for I'm not going to be able to keep up with those 23-year-olds. It's like, all right, well, why is Wade getting his brown belt when he lost to a 25-year-old purple belt? Well, that's age. I might have the knowledge, but there's things I can't do, and I don't want it to prevent progression, but I don't care about progression. I'm just happy doing jujitsu. So it's.
Well, no, and yeah, it's a complicated question, but you answered it beautifully. Like, meaning, because it still goes back to you want to do jujitsu, right? I mean, you do, and luckily, both of you guys got connected together, and you're in a good place, and you have a beautiful gym, and you got beautiful friendship, and hopefully we can do some more stuff together, and create such a bond where you guys. Most importantly, here's the thing, like, it is about us. That's why we pick an affiliation, kinda, but it also is about the guys that you're training, right? And you're trying to pick somebody that is going to foster that growth for everybody, right? And as a community, as a brotherhood, as a friendship, that's one good thing I can say since Gary's on here, but not to flatter him since he's on here, but like I'm still like good friends with everybody that is his old Ohio gym, right? We always will be. But that's what's important, right? Like there's no, like, I don't, again, to mention 1,000 times, I'm nobody, but we all talk on Instagram, Facebook, friends, right? We joke.
Yeah, well, that's like I just got back this past weekend. I drove up there and I was there I put on like a little mini seminar, and the whole thing was a bunch of dirty lapel shit. So like
Yeah.
nasty lapel tricks. And it was just for my guys, you know, because they were still wanting to learn. And now they're kind of doing what I was doing, where, you know, when I was without Butch, I was kind of on my own, kind of free floating and just teaching people what I knew. And they're running things for me, thank God. And I love them for it. And so I try and make it back once a month that I can. It's because they're doing stuff for me. More, it's because they're my friends, you know, because after that, then we all went out that night and had a good time that night too. And that was, as much as I love doing jiu-jitsu, the hang afterwards was just as
Beautiful.
important. So,
Well, let's do this, guys. I think this is a great podcast. I hope you guys agree. Wade, I feel like you should talk some more. You need to get with it, my man.
I'm not a big time talker.
No, you're fine. I'm just joking. Me and Gary talk all the time, so it's hard actually for he and I to, well, for me to quit talking to him and know that you're there in the same exact room. That's what I kept thinking. I was like, I'm hogging this whole thing because I'm used to talking.
I was happy with my time, so that's
You
plenty
do.
for me.
Yeah, you're amazing, man. Well, let's end it kind of with a couple of things. Let's say if I had a question to you guys. Now we answered a bunch of questions, but if you're giving advice to somebody in maybe your shoes now or before, but now knowing what you know, what would you tell them? Like, let's say that you know, you've already got a couple belts. It doesn't matter what belt you are, but you're stuck in an island, right? And you're looking for a new coach or a new somebody that to take you to give you promotions. That's essentially all that the affiliation is for us, right? You know, like it is everything we said, the brotherhood and the friendship and all the things that we got, but it also just does boil down to initially that somebody's a blue belt, purple belt, brown belt, and they need to get some ranking, right? And then after that, like, you know, Gary's a badass black belt now. He's golden. But at a certain point, you need to get to there. So initially we got to there. So if you're in that point where you're blue belt, purple belt, you need somebody to help you. What advice would you guys give them? And Wade, let's start with you.
I mean, I think if you're talking about more like in terms of a gym setting or finding the right gym, you know, we talked a bunch about finding a place that you enjoy. And when I was with the old association, I just didn't. I liked the training. The training was still good, but I didn't like the environment. So I think to find the place that you like to train, find the environment, find the people that you want to train with, the rest of the stuff's going to come. You know, I mean, without having Gary here as a purple belt, I can only take people so far. You know, I've got to be associated with an affiliation, and I can take people up to a certain level. But, you know, if Gary doesn't walk through the door and we don't strike up a good friendship, I don't know where I would be at that point. So this sort of happened to me, you know, finding Gary, finding you through Gary. And I'm very happy with where I'm at now because we're all sort of cut from the same vein. But the whole environment, finding someplace you like, I think is sort of the key. But I'm not a belt chaser either. So, you know, and I don't think we have belt chasers here. So
No,
they're after the same thing.
No, and well, just and before you talk, I want to mention that too, since I did say, you know, you need somebody like none of us. That's another thing. What drew us together, right? None of us are belt chasers. None of in the history, even before you guys knew me, that was never my object. My goal is to be the best in the room. Period. Right, and that's solid. I don't mean by an asshole, right? Like if Gary's in the room, my goal is to beat Gary, and Gary's goal is to beat me, and vice versa. Right? Like that's the goal, because that makes me better. And then the belts come, right? That's it. That's fine. That's a fine. If Hoist Gracie's in the room, my goal is to beat Hoist Gracie. Am I? No. But you know what I'm saying? Like that's the goal. It's going to make me better along the way. So that's fine in saying that, you know, just, and it's good to mention because I think it's important because also I want to make sure that people understand, like, do not pick affiliations because one, you think you're going to get a belt from somebody. I think that goes without saying, but like, I don't know. Somehow I think it's important also to mention, like, there might be people out there doing that. If you're doing that, it's going to work its way out anyway, right? I mean,
I'm on borrowed time here, Butch. My battery's about to die and there's no extension cord.
it's perfect. It's okay. We're at the end.
So we're right at the end. I just wanted to let you know that if I cut off and gone, I'm gone. But I'm at 6% battery, so let's get this done.
Yeah, we'll be good, man.
So as far as finding affiliation, for me, it 100% has to be a gut feeling telling me that this is the right place. And it really was.
Shit. Well, sadly, that's enough. And you got me caught eating. His 6% was not very good, but that's okay. We'll finish up with that. I think everybody got the point of it. Pick an affiliation that meets your values. Pick your affiliation that it's going to make you grow as a person. Something that you'd be happy with. Obviously, on this meeting here today, you know, Gary and I are friends, but we became friends through jiu-jitsu. You know, Gary's a black belt under me now, but you know, just like Gary said, I want to wrap this up. You know, it's weird that he you know, this happened. At least he warned us, but let me finish with this, is that, you know, Gary and I met at jiu-jitsu tournaments. I run jiu-jitsu tournaments. And you know, we struck up a friendship. Things are great. You know, I would talk to him every time. I'd be like, man, you're kicking some ass. You're doing good. And it was because of true friendship. I wasn't trying to get anything from that. Right. I just wanted him to know as a friend and as somebody that liked watching jujitsu, that I enjoyed watching him do stuff. Right. Literally didn't even know where he trained or anything like that. Right. And then it was weird because I worked and a bunch of different places. I work in a bunch of hospitals, for example, and I do medical device sales. And anyway, so I was at a hospital, and his sister was there. So I was like, hey man, like, dude, tell your brother I said hi. Like, he kicked some butt. And she was like, yeah, he's in Vegas right now doing like the IBJJF. I don't know if he's doing the Masters or what. And I was like, man, that's amazing. Yeah, I hope he does well. And so she had some stories later and told me, you know, he won a couple matches by armbar and did some cool stuff. And it was pretty cool. But anyway, so through that conversation, it got back to him, and you know, the basics of it is that we were friends, you know, and just like he said, when he was looking for affiliation, he came to me and said all this stuff, and I said, like, here, let's start with this. Let's work together and let's train and let's all meet each other. So his gym and our gym kind of interacted, and then it seemed like a good fit. It made sense, and so I could help him progress. I think maybe at the time he might have, I can't really remember, but I think he was a brown belt and was able to give him a couple stripes, and then, you know, a couple years later, a black belt, which he obviously deserved. He was stuck without a gym for a while, and it happens, right? And so then, you know, his guys are doing amazing. And now he went from Ohio to North Carolina, and he's with Wade here. And so Wade is, you know, without going to his whole story, but he's a purple belt. Similar situation. He's looking for somebody. He's kind of a guy without a home. And like I said, that is kind of, you know, as an affiliate, as a person that's offering affiliates, as a black belt instructor, which I am, a 4th degree black belt, you know, Wade kind of fit in that. He met Gary. Now Gary can do the same, but you know, Gary said, hey man, you should be in this giant, you know, affiliation that we have. And so Wade came on board, and you know, here we are, you know. So you know, Wade's in the process, you know, they've been affiliate for a while, and Gary's actually teaching at their school, so it's a little bit of both. You know, it's Wade's school, but Gary's teaching a lot, and so Wade's on board and he's kicking some butt, you know. And so that's how I do it. I wanted to be, like I said earlier, and I kind of want to finish this off with a couple of things, is that I wanted people to know that what I went through. You know, like I was just looking for a trainer. I was in a small town in West Virginia, and there was no jiu-jitsu here, right? Like I said, I was under a hoist, and the hoist was in California. You know, but when I started in the 90s or 80s, there was no jiu-jitsu in West Virginia. Like, I mean, there was, when I say that too, I'm not disparaging anybody. There was no big name instructors like that. There's some other guys like me that are also looking for some people, and they also, you know, did things that I did, and then became very successful. But similar thing, we chose different paths and did the things that we did for different reasons. And now I'm here where I am, right? So now what I thought when I got my black belt is that I have an opportunity to help other people that were in a similar situation. So a lot of times I take on some gyms that are very, very small, that have 4 or 5 people. And I'm like, hey man, like, it doesn't matter if you have 30 or 40 or 50 people. Like, these big gyms, I'm here to help you. and maybe I can help you be successful if you stick with it. Maybe I can't, but let's give it a shot. And there's no harm, no foul, meaning you're not sending me some affiliation fee. You're not doing this. All I'm doing is providing you an outlet for your students, giving you some coaching, able to rank your guys if you need it, and do all those things. And so that's what we do. And so I have affiliations from Vegas to West Virginia to Ohio to North Carolina, so all over the place. And the primary goal is just helping people get better jiu-jitsu. There's no hidden agenda. I'm not trying to take affiliation from fees from them. I'm not trying to teach seminars and make a bunch of money from them. I'm straight up forward to saying, hey, let me teach you the things that I've learned along the ways. Let me teach you the mistakes not to make, all the things that I did wrong. You know, because for example, you know, I started a gym in, let's say 2002. I had a bunch fail, like a ton. So, you know, I wanted to make sure that they don't make the same mistakes. But again, like we said earlier, I don't push them. If they do make those mistakes, that's kind of how you learn. That's how I got to where I was at. So my job is just to be a true coach. I give you some things that I think would be better. It would help you more. And if you listen and you follow them, great. And then also, you know, not everything works for everybody. So we kind of work together, see what we can figure out, and then kind of go from there. So that's the key, you know. So let's finish it off. Like, that's the thing when you're trying to find your affiliation and trying to find your thing, find somebody that's like-minded. Find somebody that meets your values. Find somebody that you can truly be friends with. There's nothing wrong with also finding an amazing jiu-jitsu coach if that's your primary goal, which is everybody's pretty much primary goal. But make sure that you're able to train with them. They're actually training with you. You're not just picking them on name value alone. There's some value in that if you're in a competitive market, of course, but I think the real value is finding somebody that actually trains you and makes you better at jiu-jitsu and helps you along the way. It's not just business. It's, you know, how can I make this guy who's chosen to pick me as his jiu-jitsu coach, as his affiliate, a better person? I think that's the most important thing. It's a hard road out there. Jiu-jitsu is for everybody. Coaches, you know, there's coaches in everything in life that you like better than others, but if you're going to pay for it, definitely find somebody that you think's worth paying for, that's going to make you happy. And that's it. Kind of rambled here at the end, but I wanted to finish with a thing. I appreciate Gary and Wade, and I'm sorry that they fell off on the end here, but I think we got our point across, and those guys are amazing, and I'm thankful that I have both of them as an affiliate for me. You know, if there's anybody out there that's looking for some help, I'm willing to offer any help I can. You don't have to be an affiliate. You can ask any of us any questions at any time, and we'll be there to help you. We're just fellow jiu-jitsu guys that want to get better just like you. And we love the sport. We're thankful for everything it brings. And we hope to continue to help those things, you know, across, I guess, the country, the world, whatever that means. You know, good luck in your jiu-jitsu journey. Good luck finding an affiliate if that's what you're doing. And hopefully this talk was good for the guys that weren't here. Gary, Wade, I appreciate you guys. And thanks for everything. We're signing off. Thanks again for listening to the Rest Round with Butch and Gary. And thanks to our guest, Wade, today. I appreciate you guys. Bye.